Stackable tool cases are great for protecting and transporting tools, but they can be awkward to use as everyday workshop storage. So I built a cabinet that lets me access the tools while the cases stay in place. I used Makpac cases, so they work like regular drawers in the workshop but can still be removed and carried wherever they're needed. I usually work with plywood, but for this project, I'm using 2x8s for the main frame. Fresh from the store, the boards are quite rough, so I'll start by cleaning up the surfaces. Now, let's build it. These long boards are too warped and twisted to make perfectly flat without removing too much material, so I'm not trying to straighten them completely. I'm simply cleaning up the surfaces and bringing them to a consistent thickness and width. Next, I trim both edges at the table saw. Since the boards aren't perfectly straight, I'm not expecting perfect accuracy. The goal is simply to remove the factory rounded edges and bring the boards to a consistent width for the glue up. I didn't hook up the dust collector, so now my car is wearing a fresh coat of sawdust. Once the glue had dried, I used a belt sander to level the joints and knock down the high spots. This isn't going to be a tabletop, so I'm not aiming for a perfectly flat surface. I just want to remove as much of the remaining unevenness as possible. Back in the workshop, I cut the glued up panels down to their final dimensions with the track saw. Most of the parts will be joined with screws, mainly through pocket holes. Since the cabinet will be used outdoors, I want to keep the screws hidden and protected from the weather. I'm also using more screws than usual because they'll help pull the warped boards into alignment during assembly. This notch allows the cabinet to clear the metal flashing along the foundation. To keep the cut square, I make most of it with the track saw, then finish the small remaining section with a jigsaw. I I wasn't sure if this was necessary, but since the cabinet would be used outdoors, I filled the knots with wood filler just to be safe. As usual, I'm making the drawers and the upper lid from Lao plywood. The cabinet will be under the carport, but it may still get wet occasionally. I'm curious to see how well a painted wood finish holds up over time. The piece I'm gluing together here will become the upper lid, much like the top section of an upright piano. When open, it reveals a worktop, and I'm also planning to use the inside of the lid as a place to hang tools. The pull-out trays for the Makpac cases are extremely simple, just flat panels with an L-shaped lip. I left the sides open so the cases can slide out sideways instead of having to be lifted high out of a deep drawer. I also assembled the trays with screws only, without glue, so the design can be modified easily if I find anything I want to improve after using them. Since people frequently walk past the front of this cabinet, I'm using recessed handles that won't stick out into the walkway. That means cutting openings for them with a jigsaw. The handles will cover the cut edges, so the openings don't need to be perfectly clean. I'm not using any special waterproof paint here, just a standard water-based paint in a custom mixed color. I didn't apply any waterproof primer or sealer either. I simply gave the wood a single coat of paint. The paint has dried, so it's time to assemble everything, and as expected, the panels have warped quite a bit. Because water-based paint adds moisture to the wood, it can make the panels swell and bend. I planned for this, so I'll pull them back into shape and secure them with screws during assembly. I test fit the lid, and it is straightened out nicely. It looks like this should work. The wider panels are too stiff to pull straight by hand, so I prioritize even gaps around the drawer fronts during assembly. This was pure brute force. I used a car jack to bend the frame into position, then locked it in place with screws. I'll then use washers behind the drawer slides to adjust them until they run straight. Since these Makpac trays aren't full boxes, I attach the drawer fronts from behind using pocket holes. There isn't much room to work, so I secure them with a few screws first, remove the trays, and then tighten everything properly. I loaded a Makpac to test it, and the weight caused a slight sag, throwing off the drawer front gap. I'll fine-tune the angle to finish the alignment. With the indoor test assembly complete, I took everything apart, moved it outside, and reassembled it in place. I screwed magnetic tool holders to the inside of the lid to keep the tools organized. These hooks are designed to attach magnetically to steel cabinets. So I mounted a spray-painted 6mm steel plate and attached the hooks to it. This space is for the hydraulic pump that operates the vehicle lift. I branched the power from the outlet strip above. To help keep out water and dust, I added foam weather stripping around the lid and secured it with toggle latches. With the cabinet complete, I'll move on to organizing the inside of the tool cases. This case holds the sockets. I placed a painted Lowen plywood panel in the bottom and screwed the socket rails directly to it. I mounted a tool holder to the lid with a piece of Lowen plywood and used the back of the lid to store extension bars, making good use of the dead space. For the pliers, I mounted 2 off-the-shelf racks at different heights inside a deep Makpac, so the tools can be pulled out from above. Storing hand tools vertically saves space and gives each tool a fixed position, so I use this method quite often. The shallow Makpac holds smaller hand tools. I added foam lining to keep them from rattling while the case is being transported in the car. This case came with an electric nailer rather than being a Makpac, so I was also able to give an unused case a new purpose. Since it turns upright when carried by the handle, I added magnets as well as dividers to keep the wrenches from shifting around. This is how the cabinet looks 4 years after installation. As expected, outdoor use has left it heavily stained. And with painted plywood, the dirt tends to soak into the surface, making it difficult to keep clean. However, the wood itself has not rotted, and thanks to the Makpac cases, the tools inside have remained protected from dust and water. In the next video, I'll replace the painted finish with architectural vinyl and add a top chest and side chests.